Joined by Coach Shannon Griffith. Coach Griff, how are you, sir?
Doing great. It's Thursday, a couple days prior to a sellout crowd and homecoming 2024.
Yeah, it's going to be a big weekend at on the Indiana University campus. I think that this could be the biggest weekend ever, but that will be determined later, actually, how big this weekend really is.
Sure.
Getting the win, even if you get the win, you know it's huge, but each weekend that grows bigger if you continue to do that, because that's
absolutely.
But not getting ahead of ourselves, the Nebraska Cornhuskers coming in, a formidable opponent for the Hoosiers. Definitely, probably the best team that they have seen, there's no question, this season, because their defense will be the best defense they've seen this season. Offensively, I don't know that this is the best offense. I think it's probably the best offense that is playing at their level. But had Indiana played Northwestern a week later, that game would have been tougher.
Yeah.
Quarterback is getting better.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't – we'll see if it's the toughest offense. They have not done a lot offensively here of late. They in the break we talked, they struggled against Purdue, although Purdue has played well against Nebraska and Illinois here of late. But they just are not – they've got a true freshman quarterback in Dylan Raiola, and he's played all right, but they're not doing what Indiana's offense is doing. And I mean, we're talking about some crushing numbers. Now, do I expect Indiana to put up 500 and something yards of offense on Nebraska? Probably not. Do I expect them to put 48 points on them? Probably not. But I still expect Indiana to win this game by 2 scores, 2 touchdowns to be specific, but 2 scores at least. I just don't think Nebraska has the offense that can overcome Indiana's defense enough to where it's going to stop what Indiana's offense will do in this game.
Yeah, I think everybody I know is, if you listen to the noise, at first that it was Indiana and 6.5 point favorite, which everybody was shocked to see that in the national media, and then the crying that Indiana hasn't played anybody. I said, wait a minute, who's Nebraska played? Because their strength of schedule, if I'm correct, is not as good as Indiana's at this point in the year. So there's a lot of noise out there right now as it pertains to the overall perception of this game. But the bottom line, again, is you're correct about Nebraska's offense is a hit or miss proposition. And that's partly because of the young quarterback who at times flashes greatly and at times flashes badly. I mean, that's what you get with a freshman quarterback. But defensively that's the side of the ball that's kept them in ball games and helped their offense in a lot of ways in a field position battle.
Yeah, and it's going to be – and you talk about the home crowd. You're playing against a team that routinely plays in front of 80,000 at home.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a substantial amount of less people, but that it can still be noisy. And I think that if they can get Indiana's fan base to do that, to be loud, to be there, that makes a difference.
Sure.
The stadium's not exactly set up for that. Both end zones are not very propagated with seats. It's not, but that noise, it ought to be loud. This is first sellout since Cincinnati a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Although I've said I expect all 4 of these home games to sell out. That would be something that I haven't seen in my lifetime. Back in the 60s, I think maybe they might have done that. But
didn't they say that the next 3 are already sold out?
Is that the case already?
I thought I saw something with.
I knew Michigan was, and I knew Purdue would sell out, and there was no reason why Washington wouldn't. Because
I thought I saw something that maybe there was one left on that remaining home schedule that wasn't sold out yet, but I do believe at least 2 of the 3 are outside of this game. So maybe I saw something, I thought that I saw, but anyway, yes, it should be a good crowd, a great crowd. Sellout crowds are always great. The acoustics in that stadium are much different today than it was 7-8 years ago when they didn't have it all 4, the end zones all closed in. So now that everything is enclosed in that stadium, it will have a different sound to it and loudness to it. And like Zig says, if we give them something to cheer for, they will be loud.
Absolutely. Indiana with I don't have the ESPN, what do you call that predictor that they have?
Yeah.
I know that they're predicted to win the game. You just mentioned that they're a 6.5 point favorite at home. That's a nice, that's something you just don't see.
Yeah, perception wise, you're exactly right.
And
there's a perception out there that's Indiana should not be a favorite over Nebraska. So.
Exactly. And when Nebraska is 5-1.
Right.
And I've talked about Dylan Raiola, their true freshman quarterback. He's got a great start, off to his career. He's throwing the ball for a completion rate of 67%, which is about 10% less than Curtis Rourke. He's thrown for 1,358 yards, which is about 500 yards less than Curtis Rourke. See, he's had it for a true freshman. He's no longer a true freshman. I remember at the beginning of the year talking about going through all these games. I said, when you get to Nebraska, the guy's no longer a true freshman.
Right.
After you have 6 games under your belt, after you played against an Illinois, after you played against Colorado and all of that. So he is settling into that, but he's going to get challenged. There's no doubt that Brian Haynes' defense, he's going to design a plan to go after him, to put pressure on him. I know that Nebraska has a couple of wide receivers and Isaiah Nair, along with Jamal Banks. Both of those guys are their 2 favorite targets. Nair is a 6'4" guy that can get up and throw the ball. So that's going to be a nice challenge for Indiana. He's 17 catches on the year for 291 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. He does average 17 yards a catch. So he's kind of a big play guy. So you got to watch out for him. Their running game, Dante Dowdell, just a sophomore, so they're young, but he's a 6'2", 225-pound bruiser, but he is 335 yards rushing on the year, averaging 4.5 yards a carry. That's a solid mark. You're over that 4 yards a carry mark. You're doing well, especially again this deep into the season. It's not an anomaly, but. On the offensive side, those are the key players to look out for.
Yeah, and the one thing with the Dylan Raiola kid is, like I said, being that he's a freshman, I see a lot of he mimics in some respects. I'm forgetting his name down at Kansas City. Quarterback.
Peyton Mahomes or Patrick Mahomes.
Mahomes. Thank you. It's been a morning. There's a lot of similarities in their throwing mechanics and stuff. So and I don't like some of that.
He definitely mimics Mahomes, which it's fine. If you're going to mimic somebody, that's a pretty damn good one to mimic.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's the right thing. I think you got to be your own individual when you're a quarterback, no matter what level you're at, but I get it. And that's the one thing that I think with him is, held their offense a little bit back is that, he doesn't have all the experience that he needs to be a Big Ten quarterback. And the fact that they're getting productions out of the running backs and then the throwing game has been somewhat productive has helped him. But the biggest help to him has been their defense and what they've been able to do. Now against Rutgers, they went with a no huddle scheme against Rutgers. And I think partly that was because they were fearing the substitutional issues that Rutgers could match up against them. So don't be surprised if Nebraska continues that against Indiana, especially having 2 weeks to prepare, that they may, try to incorporate some of the things that Northwestern did, and not allow Indiana to substitute that much and try to keep them out of some of their schemes, because they're trying to go, they're, fast paced in that regard. Defensively, they got some studs. They're their typical Nebraska defense, big, strong, and physical. Robinson and I think it's Matcher. The two inside guys, defensive end and a defensive tackle, those guys are men. They are men.
No question that this defensive front is going to be something that Indiana's offensive line has not dealt with this year. But up till now, man, I don't think it's said enough. And I don't think enough praise has been given to the offensive line for Indiana, because we talk about the passing yards, we talk about the running yards, we talk about the prolific offense and the variable ways that they can just kill you. But it all starts with this offensive line, who 2 years ago was the worst in college football. It was just been horrible it's what started the downfall of Indiana, to be actually, the re-downfall after that brief climb out. But they've done a tremendous job. They're not getting enough credit. And but this is going to be a test.
Yeah, the one thing that, and I kind of self-scouted Indiana's offense and defense, for that matter of fact, this past week with bye week and stuff. But what Indiana is doing offensively that's causing problems for defenses is about every play that they run is more or less an RPO, which gives the quarterback the flexibility to either hand it off or throw it. And they've defined what those parameters are for Curtis. And he's done quite well in making those correct decisions on RPOs. Why is that important? Because the defense is never right, especially if he's completing the football, which he is. And you've seen Surratt on the quick slants and some other things that they've done with their RPOs that they've combined with their running game. It's caused problems for defense, is because when they're trying to take something away, when you have a two-way option, it's almost impossible to take something away. But that's one thing that I think they've offensively have incorporated in their scheme that has been the most productive part of what they do offensively. That will be important against a team like Nebraska. I wouldn't be surprised to see if Indiana utilizes some tempo against this defense, just because of the size of them and trying to keep them off balance as they go through this ball game. One thing that's hurt Nebraska this year, and one side that is part of their game has been not very good at all, is special teams. Rutgers blocked 2 punts against them. I want to say Purdue blocks a punt against them as well, or a field goal attempt. I can't remember which one that was. So in a game when you've got two teams that are equally matched on either side of the football, special teams becomes a vital point of the ball game. Nebraska's special teams has not helped them at all this year. And as a matter of fact, when you're getting punts blocked and things of that magnitude, again, those are the things that can ultimately beat you in these types of ball games. So there's a factor there to keep an eye on this week with everything. And does the Nebraska try to steal a possession? Do they fake a punt? They faked one against Rutgers that was a great call at the right time in the second half, even when they were ahead 14-0. So it's going to be a chess match. I mean, there's going to be give and take. And again, with everything that's happening to Indiana as it pertains to their ability on both sides of the football, they are a tough team to play right now just because of that. And even Urban Meyer said the other day when him and Jerry Denarder sit down to talk about Indiana football, the biggest compliment that you can get as a coach is when you talk about a team that's well coached in the fundamentals of what they do. And he talked about the blocking of the offensive line, the play of the quarterback, and the play of the defense. So Urban Meyer gave him high praise, and he's actually, they're looking for their big noon group to be here in Bloomington in a game that has some bearing in the conference race.
Yeah, I go through a lot of different places to find information, to read what people are saying, and reading one of the Nebraska previews for players to watch. They list Curtis Rourke right off the bat, which they should, but immediately the sentence that follows it says, there is a lot to watch on this Indiana offense with numerous productive rushers and receivers. Stop. Boom. That, in a nutshell, is why Indiana is so difficult to deal with, because, and I've said this all year, they have a myriad of ways of beating you inside of the multiple ways they have to beat you.
Exactly.
And Curtis Rourke has been a master at not freaking out, not making a lot of mistakes. He is just seems to be so in tune with his guys, the timing, the knowing how to find them, knowing all of that. And they're only halfway through. They're going to get better. It's going to be interesting to see Indiana coming off of this bye week, Coach. What improved? Because again, I just keep referring back to Northwestern, because you can look at Jack Lausch and see, how bad he was in the game before Indiana. Then they had a bye. Then he played decent against Indiana. Then they go to Maryland and just kick the crap out of them, and he has a tremendous game. And Maryland, as we know, is no easy team. So I'm interested to see if this offense has improved even more from being already one of, if not the top offenses in the country. Now, Matt Rule knows that what he's dealing with. I played a clip the other day that if you have that, well, we don't have time to play it now, but he talked about, talked about the challenges. He said, well, let's see. They lead the Big Ten in passing. They're close, if not leading in rushing. They're a top 10 team in the country in offense. They're a top 10 team in the country on defense. They haven't trailed. They're the only team in the country that hasn't trailed this year. This segment is brought to you. And they've scored 80 points in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, you want to talk about all things that are good. That's a lot of stuff to have to deal with. But,
and that's what Matt Rule was talking about. He thought, them being ranked as a 16th team was actually a slap in Indiana's face, because he felt they were a top 10 team based on the black and white of the matter. And it's hard to argue that point, especially in that regard. And the other thing he talked about as well with all that is he also stated that they're outscoring their opponent in the first quarter 73-0. Indiana has not given up a first quarter score all year, I believe. And I think it was 73-0. So on top of all this, and the one thing, Jim, before you need to go here, buddy, on offense, what makes them also difficult to defend is the distribution that Curtis Rourke has made with his receivers. He trusts the guys that are on the field, no matter what position they are or who they are. He had Miles Price at Ohio U. That was his primary target. In Indiana, he has a multitude of Miles Prices in that lineup, and he distributes the ball very good in that regard. And again, that makes it difficult for a defense to say we're going to take this away or take that away, because Indiana's had the answer of who they can go to, and they're getting smart play out of Curtis Rourke now. And that's why he's here. I mean, that goes right back to the reason why Curt Cignetti wanted Curtis Rourke. He had been in these situations, and he knows what to do in a game that's, being played where, the coaches are on the sideline and he's the guy in charge in the huddle.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, and looking forward to the Hard Truth post-game show.
Absolutely.
On Saturday. It's going to be a fun one, and looking forward to it. The weather for us will be great at that time. It'll be, well, for you, it'll probably too bad you can't come down for this game. We got to get you down for some of these.
I know. It's these Friday night games that get in my way.
I hear you. Well, all right, brother. We'll talk on Saturday. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, join me tonight, 7:30. We're going to break it all down. See you then.
Do that at Who's Your Tailgate. We'll get that up there. We got to start getting your info up there. Where to reach that. So